We live in a world that celebrates busy. The more exhausted you are, the harder you must be working. And the harder you're working, the more worthy you must be. And somewhere in all of that noise, something essential got quietly squeezed out. Today, we're talking about what that something is. It's play, and it might just change everything. In this episode, you will walk away understanding that burnout is not just exhaustion, it's disconnection. And you will have one small practical thing to try this week that costs nothing and takes less than 5 minutes. Welcome to the Element of Play. I'm Jodi Salmond, marine scientist, playful leadership coach, and author of The Element of Play. This podcast is for burnt out humans who've had enough of autopilot, enough of chronic seriousness, enough of hustle culture telling us that the rest is lazy and play is something that we have not earned yet. And just to be clear from the start, when I talk about play, I'm not talking about pretending everything is fine. And I'm not talking about being relentlessly cheerful. And I'm definitely not suggesting that burnout can be fixed with a board game and a novelty hat. Although both of those things sound like a fantastic start. And to be fair, I do love a novelty hat. But what I am talking about is play as a way back to energy, to courage, to curiosity, to connection, and to that feeling of being more like yourself again. Because so many of us have become very good at being responsible, capable, productive adults. But somewhere in the middle of all that, we've forgotten what it feels like to be fully in our own lives. Not performing them, but actually living them. We've become very good at being human doings. This show is about becoming human beings again. Burnout doesn't always look like collapsing into a dramatic heap. Sometimes it looks like functioning. Sometimes it looks like being the person everybody relies on. Sometimes it looks like getting all the things done, still answering the messages, still smiling in the meetings, still saying I'm fine because it sounds like an extra job just to try and explain it to someone. And that's really tricky because high functioning burnout is actually very easy to miss, especially when the world keeps rewarding you for being capable. So here's the real scale of burnout. 66% of workers globally are experiencing burnout right now, a brand new all-time high. Here in Australia, we're actually worse than the global average, with 82% of Australian knowledge workers reporting feeling burnt out, even as we speak. And a Curtin University study of 2,500 Western Australian mining workers found 38% reported burnout, with 30% at high or very high psychological distress. And researchers keep pointing to the same thing underneath it all. Disconnection, no downtime, no aliveness, and no play. Being capable is not the same as being well. Being productive is not the same as feeling alive. And it's not just I'm tired. It's I don't actually even feel like myself anymore. When I say play, I can almost feel some people tense up because we've been taught that play belongs to children, that adults can rest only after they've been productive, and that play is something that you do when everything important has been finished, which is actually really hilarious because when is everything ever finished? There's always another email, another load of washing, another meeting, or another bill. So if play only ever happens when everything else is done, well, play never happens. Play is not childish. Play is human. It's one of the ways that we learn, connect, regulate, experiment, create, and recover parts of ourselves that get buried under pressure. Play is not the opposite of work. Play is the opposite of shutdown. Play is also not the same thing as joy. Joy might be the result, but play is the process. It's the curiosity and the willingness to try, the tiny experiment, the shift in energy, the moment you stop gripping life quite so tightly. And for you, that might look like dancing badly in the lounge room or playing hide and seek with your dogs, getting outside and noticing the sky, trying something new, making a mess, laughing at yourself, asking a better question, or approaching a problem with curiosity instead of dread. And before anyone says that play is soft or optional, Gallup surveyed 128,000 workers across 160 countries and calculated that burnout costs the global economy $8.8 trillion every single year. Not billion, but trillion. So this really serious approach that we've been taking is extremely expensive and also obviously not working. For me, this idea and this work didn't come from sitting around thinking, you know what the world needs? Another framework. It came from a lived experience. After a really difficult chapter in my life, I realized I was still functioning, but I wasn't really fully alive in the way I wanted to be. I wasn't missing discipline. I had plenty of that. I wasn't missing responsibility because, trust me, I had that covered as well. What I was missing was that feeling of lightness, of trust, of failing forward, of laughter, experimentation, and connection. And one of the places that came back to me was actually in partner acrobatics. I know this sounds ridiculous, especially if you're imagining some beautiful, graceful goddess position, but it was not that. There was a lot of falling, there was a lot of limbs in wrong places, and there were moments when my brain did not compute or believe that my body was going to let me survive. But there was also trust, communication, laughter, and that feeling of someone literally having to catch you. The incredible experience of trying something, not getting it right, adjusting, and then trying again. And I just remember thinking, I feel like myself again. But also, when did that stop happening? It's not about the activity, it's about what comes back online when you give yourself permission to stop being so bloody serious for 5 minutes. It reminded me that I could be brave and ridiculous at the same time. And honestly, that might be one of my favorite combinations. Some of the biggest things I want people to understand is that play actually looks different on everyone. This is not about forcing everyone to become extroverted or loud or silly or wildly spontaneous, because some people play through movement, some through ideas or humor or nature or through making things with their hands. Some go through adventure and some through deep connection. Some through mischief, music, curiosity, problem solving, dancing, gardening, surfing, painting, collecting shells, or sending memes to your friends at 2 a.m. Sometimes people connect and want to play just through asking strange questions or taking a different route home just because you can. The point actually isn't the activity, it's what it does in you. Does it create a little bit more energy? Does it bring you into the moment? Does it reconnect you to yourself? Or does it connect you to someone else? Does it remind you that you are more than your output? And for burnt out humans, we need to make this really small and really accessible. Because if someone is already exhausted, telling them to go and find your passion can actually feel like handing them a glitter covered brick. So, one song, one walk, one laugh, one curious question, one tiny moment of, oh, there I am. So that's what this podcast is here to explore. We'll talk about burnout and aliveness, what it means to feel flat, disconnected, or stuck in survival mode. We'll also talk about play in everyday life, not as a huge lifestyle overhaul, but as small moments that change the texture of your day. We'll talk about play at work and in leadership, because frankly, the serious spaces definitely need it most. Burnout brains do not create brilliant cultures. Disconnected teams do not magically become innovative because someone added think outside the box to a meeting agenda. We'll talk about the body, movement, expression, nervous system regulation, trying things badly, being seen, and remembering that we are not just brains dragging laptops around. We'll talk about relationships, connection, identity, growth, courage, and what happens when we stop performing long enough to ask, what actually makes me feel alive? And in every episode, we will play And in every episode, we will include a play of the week. One small invitation you can try, notice, or do in your actual life. And this is not because I want to give you more homework. It's because I want this to be really useful for you. So here is your first play of the week. This week, I want you to notice one moment where you feel genuinely alive, even briefly. Not productive, not impressive, not I smashed my to-do list and therefore I deserve a biscuit. Because honestly, eat the biscuit. I mean alive. A moment where something in you softens or sparks or opens up a little bit, just that little bit of a crack, where you laugh unexpectedly or breathe differently, or just get that quiet feeling of, oh, there I am. It might be a song in the car or a funny conversation or a moment outside under a tree just looking up at the moon. It might be just a movement or curiosity, a tiny adventure. Or it might be a moment where you completely forgot to check your phone. Just notice it. Write it down if you can, because that moment is not random. It is a clue. And over time, those clues become a map back to yourself. So, coming back to where we all started, that feeling of doing all the things all the time and still feeling exceptionally flat. Still feeling far away from yourself and wondering if this is it. Maybe it's not that you're doing anything wrong. Maybe you don't need another productivity hack, a better morning routine, more sleep, or a color-coded calendar. Because honestly, if color coding fixed burnout, most of us would be enlightened by now. Maybe what's been missing is something much simpler and much more human. Because we've become human doings. And this show is about becoming human beings again. If this conversation landed with you, subscribe to The Element of Play, share it with someone who's been living on fumes, and please come back next week as we keep exploring how play helps us feel more human again. So this week, start there. Notice one moment where you feel more alive. That's your clue. Until next time, add a little play into your day and feel a lot more human.